Okay, we are recording.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Adam. Uh, so I have a very few high level slides. Just want to talk about a few points that I thought would be important for this discussion. I will share, but it's kind of very simple, just questions, and then we kind of talk about them. Let me share. Hmm, where's the share? Here you go. I should be able to see my screen.
Yeah, because yeah.
All right, perfect. So before I start, a quick introduction. I am the general manager for ControlMap in ScalePad. Prior to this, I was the founder, CEO of ControlMap. We have been around for a couple of years now, and we have been actively helping partners and companies build their compliance practices. One of the most important question that we get is, why is it important? Why do I need to be compliant? And we hear that a lot. And the most common answer that we get, and it's kind of the most obvious answer that comes to anyone's mind, that hey, uh, why is compliance important to us? Is because it helps you avoid hefty fines. It would help you avoid security breaches, uh, and prevent you from all the malicious and hacking attacks and whatnot. Right. So it those are all kind of important reasons. But sometimes the way they are presented also sounds like borderline scare tactics. So what we have seen, what we have learned, and I don't know why my slide doesn't move, but what we have seen and learned is that the three reasons why compliance is important, and it you know all these fines and security breaches are important, but one of the things that compliance does is it provides a method to the madness. It provides a structure around how you implement your compliance, how consistently you go about implementing all the security tools that you have bought, so that you're not just implementing tools and just doing security in the dark. There is a reason, there is a why you are doing it, there's a how you're doing it, and it's not just about a tool, but it's also about the risk and sanely answering what's important, right? What you must protect, how you will protect it. It gives you a structure, and that's one of the most important reason why you should be doing compliance. We talk a lot about security tools and how to secure and prevent attacks, but sticking to a compliance program gives you a method to improve your security posture over time. It tells you the ROI of your security investments, and it also becomes a way for you to measure, report, and improve your security posture. That's one of the most important reason for being compliant. There are other reasons which we have heard from partners, is that it becomes it becomes a common language to speak, right? So you don't have to tell your customers or your stakeholders that, hey, I have the fanciest firewall implemented, or I have the best endpoint protection implemented. You tell them that, hey, you're HIPAA compliant, you are SOC 2 compliant, or you have done a CMMC readiness assessment. So that speaks a lot about your posture rather than listing down the tools that you have done. So if you're doing a compliance program, it takes the guesswork out of how you communicate with your cohort. And then the last reason why it is important, it's kind of my favorite, is and it has helped us a lot, is that it becomes um, a tool to grow your sales. Means we were a SaaS company, we are a software company, and SOC 2 is very important for us, and we are a SOC 2 compliant tool. Most of our sales conversations used to get stuck that what compliance do you have, or are you SOC 2 compliant, or are you this compliant or that compliant? So it's so compliance is not a back end cost center anymore. It has kind of reached in the realm of sales, and it helps grow your business, not just just getting audited and compliant, but it very often has started coming in the sales contracts and the sales conversations. So that's kind of what I think are the reasons to be compliant and run a compliance program. Not because you should be scared about, means those are important too, like fines and security breaches. But if you take the structured approach, I think those take care of themselves.
And I think those reasons are, I think it's good to cover those. And I think those reasons apply both to MSPs yourselves if you're looking at getting compliant with some framework, but
Yes.
also for your clients, right? Your client might be looking for those same exact reasons, but like, hey, they're to go get SOC 2 so they can sell more and that sort of thing. So I think all those reasons apply to both yourselves as MSPs and your clients.
And it does, yeah, these are great talking points when you as a MSP are explaining to a customer who's resisting being compliant, or who's asking that, hey, what's in it for me? I'm too small, or I don't protect any data, or I don't have any data. These are all the good reasons for them to be compliant, and for you to take that conversation forward. So the next thing that kind of comes to, any questions, or I'll be taking questions at the end, Adam.
No, we can take questions at any point during this. And even if people want to stay on mute, you can put questions in the chat and I'll bring them up to Palaf. Also, if you want to see us take a different direction with the session of how we talk about compliance, if there's specific things you want to know, feel free to put them in the chat or ask them.
Right. Yeah, just feel free to ask anything, any doubt, any challenges that you have faced talking about that particular thing to your customer. The other thing that kind of comes to mind is what is the process of getting a client certified or getting them compliant? Once you have explained them the importance of why they should be compliant, and obviously the next question is, okay, what, I want to get compliant, what do I do, right? What process do I take them through from start to finish so that they can call themselves compliant? So again, you probably have heard that to start, you have to kind of take the first step. And the first step in my mind, or what I have seen, is a step towards a successful compliance campaign, is to answer why you want to get compliant and commit to it, right? Very often, I have seen organizations starting the compliance for a wrong reason, and then kind of giving it, or quitting in the process. So, for example, they might just want to be compliant because there is a customer they're going after, and then the deal fell through, and then they don't want to be compliant. Or they want to target an industry because of a particular fine, and that the business direction changes, and they give up the compliance program. So answering the why of why you want to be compliant and then committing to it actually helps structure the program for compliance. And sometimes you will be responsible, or you will know as MSPs, you will have to answer that why for your customers. It could be the type of data they are processing. It could be the industry they are in. It could be the markets or industries they're operating in, which require them to be compliant or adhere to certain standards.
Fucking link.
Sorry, what's the question?
I think somebody just off mute for a second.
Oh.
I think answering the why getting compliant in a specific framework or certification, I think is really, really important, because compliance is it can be a fairly heavy lift, right? Like it's not necessarily an easy thing or a fun thing for the client to go through. So I think, having that overall, hey, this is why we're doing this. This could be the value of doing this. I think it's going to be really important when you're putting a lot of effort and investment into it.
Correct. And then committing to it, once you know why you're doing it and you commit to it as a company, or you work with your customer. The second step obviously is to answer who is working on it, right? It's always a partnership between you and your customers. Uh, you could be acting as their virtual CISO, you could be acting as their data custodian, you could be acting as somebody who's implementing endpoint security or other security tools for them. But it's a partnership, because at the end of the day, the client is the eventual or the customer is the eventual stakeholder for the data that is being protected. So finding a sponsor with your customer, partnering with that sponsor, having that that relationship built with that sponsor, that we are doing this work, we have your blessing, we have your sponsorship to take this program from start to finish, right? It could be a person, it could be a team, it could be a kind of executive. They should be able to sponsor this program and say, yes, we commit to it, and we start. And that's again a reason we have seen this program fail, because sometimes it's given to a HR lead that, hey, a lot of HR requirements, you handle it, or it's given to a technical manager that a lot of IT requirements, you handle it, and they obviously don't have the complete picture, and it kind of have troubles in the middle of the program. So getting in touch with the right sponsor, working with them to implement the program really helps in the success rate. Once you have the why, you're doing it, who is doing it, then obviously the question is, what do we have to do? And that's where I think picking a framework or a standard really comes in the picture. It's really driven by the industry, or the industry, or the type of data or type of work your customer does. For example, for DoD contractors, it's mostly CMMC. Somebody dealing in healthcare, it's HIPAA. Software companies, it's SOC 2. Global software companies, it's ISO. So again, depending on what kind of a business your customers in, the type of data they protect, you pick a framework. And from there on, once you pick a framework, it's kind of just sticking to it, adhering to the requirements, what the framework is asking, and kind of taking them through the process of doing the assessment, identifying gaps, filling the gaps, and implementing what is required for that framework for you to get audited.
And Pallav, is there, like, let's choose I don't know, HIPAA as an example. If we've got a client in a vertical where HIPAA makes sense, is there anything to like stepping stones to get there? Or if the client's in the industry that needs HIPAA, does it make sense to just go like, hey, let's just go straight to HIPAA, because you're going to need it eventually? There's no point in doing like a lighter weight compliance or framework to get there.
A very good question. So there is always a urgency and a maturity that you want to get to, and how quickly you want to get to. If I have the flexibility or freedom to pick, I would always want to start with a lightweight framework, not directly go to HIPAA, right? Start with something small, which is much more manageable, which is much more attainable, because it also gives you a success that you have done these 20 things. But sometimes it's, sometimes it's like, no, we have to get to HIPAA, right? There's this urgency that, hey, we need HIPAA compliance. So in those cases, yes, it's a little harder. You directly jump into HIPAA, go through the security rule and 200 requirements that HIPAA has. But if there is no urgency, but you eventually have to get to HIPAA, you can start with, ControlMap has baseline controls. You can start with that. There are other frameworks like Essential 8 or CIS Implementation Group 1. So you can start with those smaller, more attainable goals, and then grow to HIPAA from there.
And like it's a stepping stone. It's not like wasted time. Like a lot of those things will be used for HIPAA anyways. Like they're mandatory there, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a question in the chat from Olena. What tools does ScalePad have to track compliance? That's basically what ControlMap is. So ControlMap tracks all the different things, and Pal, correct me when I make a mistake, but tracks all the different things needed to kind of check those boxes and get compliance for each framework.
Yep. Yes. So ControlMap is the platform which helps track all of this, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Can you show it, please? I can do a quick demo if time permits. Kind of give you a quick overview if that helps. But yeah, that was a great question. That there is a stepping stone. Most of these frameworks share a lot of these requirements. 60-70% is always same. So as long as you start with something concrete and basic, it's never wasted work, right? Endpoint protection is required for everyone, right? Antivirus is required for all frameworks. Firewall is required for all frameworks. Background checks is required. So there's a lot of common work which needs to happen, which you can do as a prep. Which kind of come? Sorry.
I would just pause here for a question. We'll see if we can get a question from the group. But does for the group here, when you're working with a client, do you often have like a set of security and kind of change control, let's say criteria that you want to get every client up to that like maybe you've created, or are you using something that's out of the market like CIS or anything like that? But I guess the question is, one, do you have kind of a common set of criteria that you're trying to get your clients up to? And the second follow-up to that is it your own in-house that you've kind of created this checklist, or are you using something off the shelf? No answers, but that's okay. But I know, so Greg came in here, we made our own. I think that's very common. So I think I've seen a lot of MSPs, they have like a baseline set of controls, set of requirements that like with every client they work with, they want to get them up to that level, kind of get that baseline for all clients. And it could make sense to, have your own custom baseline, then maybe go to one of the kind of lightweight frameworks, then to HIPAA or something like that. Just kind of like have that stepping stone, so it's not all at once. Yeah, and then somebody else in here, we've got 23 components in their checklist, so they are kind of working towards that. Perfect. Back to you, Bal.
Yeah, right. So that's very common. A lot of MSPs create their own 20, 30 like questions or items to go through with all their customers. And it's also sometimes based on what they offer as a service, and then map it out to different framework requirements. So just a follow-up question to Don. How do you think that 23 components cover the entirety or part of compliance frameworks like a CIS or a CSF?
Well, I don't think currently the number of managed clients that we service on the full managed services, we just took, like I say, a robust cybersecurity application and worked to ensure that there was a tool in place that meets or exceeds the requirements of each of those controls, so that in the event of an incident, they wouldn't be denied a claim due to gross negligence. None of our current clients at this point have, and we're up in Canada, but we don't have anyone with enforcement for additional compliance. We're not taking care of any medicals, anything like that. Certainly it's going to happen eventually. And regardless whether you're in the medical and have to have HIPAA or PIPEDA, it's called for us up here, whatever it might be. There's nothing wrong in actually enforcing the compliance, just to operate better as an organization, if that makes sense. But I do see what you're saying about any of these baseline or the framework that you start off with to work towards the end goal. It's none of it hurts. It's all good practice.
Yeah, and it's even like it speeds it up, and it's kind of satisfying when you like get all these requirements from like HIPAA dropped on you and be like, oh, you know what? It's not as bad as I thought because we're already doing all of these things. We already have this checklist. We already have some material. It's just easier to get started.
I think 23, 25 also kind of sounds about right to cover most of the essential, access management and endpoint protection and stuff like that. Very nice. So which kind of brings me to the next topic of different tools used for compliance, and I want to kind of probably use this as an opportunity to show ControlMap and talk a little bit about ControlMap. So if some of you probably have done compliance work in the past or are doing it right now. But if you look at a typical compliance project, it's not a single threaded project. Like it's not that a team comes together and they just implement compliance. There are, some of these frameworks have hundreds of requirements, which are done by different teams. There will be requirements for HR team. There will be requirements for IT team, engineering teams, management. So those requirements go out to different teams. There is evidence collection required. There is historical data required. And, over time, you have to monitor, what's coming in, what's going out. So it's there are a lot of moving parts to a compliance program. So, you could, in the past, compliance was thought of that, okay, we came in, we did an assessment, we have an assessment report, and that's it. We did our part. We did our part for compliance, but not anymore, right? The expectations have evolved. Assessment is the first step, which you can pretty much do in a spreadsheet, or that's how it used to happen. But then over time, you have to monitor it. You have to collect data. You have to provide evidence. You have to connect all the parts. For example, this asset has this risk. This risk relates to this threat, stuff like that. So there are a lot of moving parts, interconnected parts, and there is a need for a specialized software, a software which could automate a lot of it, a software which could integrate with different tools that you're using for compliance, for your security, bring all that data together and present to you your current state or your current posture of compliance. Right, and that's kind of what we do. What we have implemented in ControlMap, a way for you to bring all of it together, connect to various systems, pull in the data, and provide kind of a view of where you are at with your compliance.
And one part of it is I bring it together. I think most people used to use spreadsheets and that sort of thing, and now software is making that better. But at the end of the day, for most frameworks, you're going to get audited as well, right? Like there'll be somebody going through this with a fine-tooth comb, saying, "Hey, are you actually doing these things?" And you need all that material prepared.
Yep. So if it is okay, I will pull. I just want to also show how it looks and it's kind of laid out. Gives a better picture of. Okay. I just pulled up the ControlMap instance. This is what you see is what we call the MSP portal.
Yeah. And right now we can just see the different tools used. We can see your PowerPoint.
Oh.
Perfect. We can see ControlMap now.
All right. So this is what we call the MSP portal. It shows you all your customers. We are planning to integrate with tools which will pull in your customer list. But beyond that, You have all your customers. It kind of gives you an overview of what frameworks are they implementing, what their progress is and stuff like that. But when you click on one of them, it takes you to an environment which is for your customer, where they are doing the compliance program, where you are working with them in partnership to implement their compliance program. And on the left of this instance, you will see a typical flow of start to finish of how a compliance program goes through, right? You have assessments. You kind of select your frameworks, you implement controls. There's a full risk assessment module built in, which helps you kind of relate your risk to assets, to vendors, manage a risk register internally. It's also a store for all your policies, procedures, and governance documents.
And so that when you're storing your policies, procedures, and governance, when you get audited, you just pull them from there. So like they're just on one place.
Yes.
Okay.
So during audits, and if you see audits, it's kind of the last step. But during audits, your audit projects, again, the system pulls in based on the framework you are selecting for audit, the requirements that you are selecting for audit. It'll pull in the relevant policies, procedures, and show it to the auditors. So that's kind of the key reason for you to use a system, is because everything is so interconnected. So if you go to policies, this is a very common policy, acceptable use policy. You will see which frameworks does it apply to, who approved it, right? When is the next review date? So all this data together, interconnected to each other, and system alerting you that, hey, you have to do this work now, you have to do this work next year, is what gives value to, having it all together here.
And I've taken products through and companies through compliance in the past before like tools like this existed, and we wanted to get like 27001 certified, want to get SOC 2 and these other ones. We did a bad job of it. Like we didn't have like one kind of requirement here and say, hey, once we do that, it'll apply to all these things. It was a mess of spreadsheets. So this is nice to see.
And again, the issue with spreadsheets is it's very difficult to track changes. It's very difficult to manage changes, versions. And that's where, having a system like this, let's go to a policy. It helps you keep the policy in here, all the information about the policy in here, all the mappings to the policy. And policy is just one piece, right? You must be collecting evidence over over multiple years or multiple audit cycles. You can see your evidences, which program, it's related to HIPAA, ISO, what rules does it relate to, in the past, who has submitted those evidences. So it all brings it together, right? That for this requirement, I have this evidence, I have been collecting it for last 1 year. I have been collecting it on these dates. And everything is kind of listed down here for auditors to come and see. You don't have to scramble at the time of audit to show it to them.
Let's go. There's a question in the chat here. If an MSP doesn't follow any specific frameworks, or they don't have a client that's following specific frameworks, and they're looking to like take that first step, should they go with NIST or CIS? Any recommendations?
Yeah, CIS is what we personally like. The reason being, they're both competing frameworks, but CIS has a lot more work being done to keep it up to date. NIST becomes a little confusing with FedRAMP, CSF, 800-171. There are just too many frameworks. So if they don't have anything, they're not a DoD contractor, they don't have an inclination towards CMMC or 800-171, we definitely recommend starting with CIS implementation group 1. And again, it lays out very nicely in the system. Hopefully this is, it's loaded in here. So yes, CIS V8. So it's all laid out. We have all the policies mapped, policies, procedures, evidence mapped to it. You can scope implementation groups based on, if it's only the first time, we would recommend just do implementation group 1. And just, go through assessment, implementation. Very straightforward. The system makes it very straightforward, but we would recommend CIS only because it's much more well laid out as a structure.
Okay. And it's kind of fun because I don't know everything about this product, so I get to ask some questions too. But if somebody goes with CIS first, right? So I'm an MSP, I take my client through CIS. There's all the other ones like, HIPAA SOC 2, all the other things I could do. Does it, once I'm done CIS, does it tell me like what percentage I'm done the other ones? Like what's the next easiest thing for me to do?
Yes, it does. So we have something called a jump start. And if you go to this button called jump start, it should tell you that which framework jump starts which other one, right? So for example, ISO jumpstarts SOC 2 by 77%, GDPR by 26%, HIPAA by 39%. So anytime you are done with the ISO, you're 40% done. It does 93% of CSA, right? So it tells you how much it jumpstarts the other framework. So
gotcha. And probably like as an MSP, like you could, say, hey, I want to get people to CIS. Like that's kind of like the foundational thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then does it make sense that like after that depends what kind of business they're in?
Yeah.
Like even if it says, 70% of the way to SOC 2, it doesn't necessarily apply to the vertical, right? So then the next step is maybe what's kind of low hanging fruit, but what makes sense for their line of business as well.
Correct. It could be PCI, it could be ISO, it could be HIPAA. But if you don't know, we recommend start with CIS. And CIS also has multiple implementation groups, so you can choose your maturity, right? That, I want to be like group 3, or I want to just get started with group 1. So yeah, we kind of slightly deep dive into the tool, but essentially what it tells you, if you just go through it, it tells you that this becomes your place of documentation. This becomes your place of collecting all the data. We do integrate with many cloud systems, AWS, Azure, Intune, Office 365, Jump Cloud. So there are many systems that we automatically pull data in and make sure that those systems are compliant. So for example, this is our AWS dashboard. You can see what's passing, what's failing, what assets did we collect, who has access, who does not have access, which ones are MFA enabled, and stuff like that. So that's, again, a system like this would, collect all this evidence, all this data for auditors to come and see, for you to identify gaps and start working on them. Right? We know there are 4 orphan accounts. So we can kind of start working on why are they orphan, right? Who owns these accounts? So things like that. And these are the things that auditors come and say, hey, why is this account marked as orphan? So you can explain, you can provide reasoning, you can fix it, but you will be ready. It will not be a surprise for you.
And is anybody on here? Has anybody got one of their clients through one of these frameworks? Oh, there's a question from Mark here on the cost of ControlMap. That's a good question. But maybe while Palav is pulling up the cost of this, has anybody been through getting their client through a certification and had that experience? Do you see that as something that's going to come up soon?
We're working on some stuff right now, but it's on the HIPAA side. So
okay. And maybe a follow-up question. Do you find, I think a lot of things that MSPs can do sometimes, you kind of like own a lot of it. Like you can kind of go do it yourself and run at your own pace to some extent. when you're looking at some of the frameworks and certifications, some of it's going to touch like HR practices and things that an MSP might not normally be doing. Have you kind of run into the challenges of really needing to coordinate closely with the client? Because if not, I think that's an area to kind of not really watch out for, but certainly some of the kind of heavier weight frameworks, it touches a lot of part of the business, like maybe areas that the MSP is not normally touching. So there's because some challenges, I think some things to watch out for there. So if there's anybody that has some experience of how you work through those as an MSP, possible to share with the group, but if not, that's fine as well. And Paolo, there was a question on the cost. You just have like, actually I can pull it up, but do we have a link where we can just show the cost?
I think I do have a link. We can share the link after, but essentially the way we price is you as a MSP will have customers or number of clients. We price based on that. We call it tenants. So it starts from a single tenant, and you can buy single individual tenants, or you can buy like packages. So you can buy a package of 10 tenants or 25 tenants, and it starts at $200 per month per tenant. And as you grow and as you buy like bigger packages, you get economies of scale. So for example, 10 tenants, or if you want to implement across 10 customers, it's $1,000 a month per group of 10 tenants. And you have opportunity to buy 25 and 50, and it scales from there.
Yeah. And I mean, the cost of just getting these certified in these frameworks, from doing the work and running through all this stuff, businesses are aware that there's a hefty price tag with it, and often either they have to get these certifications or they see the business value in getting them. But I think as an MSP, I think lots of opportunity to, it'd be a lot of work, but I think there's lots of dollar figures attached to this as well. Like I went through FedRAMP as a software company before, but we budgeted I think it was about $2 million or so to get FedRAMP certified. That's a heavyweight certification, but we knew it was expensive, but it was worth it to us. Certainly if you're selling to smaller companies, it's not maybe going to cost as much, but there's big dollar figures attached to it.
Correct. And I think the ROI for the platform itself becomes very real when and I just pulled up a report which is kind of done for a NIST CSF assessment. So once you run through your assessment and you have data like this, like action items clearly laid out for your customers across different areas, critical, high, medium, and just presenting this and creating more projects or services work or application work actually is where the tool pays for itself. Like this is an assessment report, very detailed with action items and gaps and analysis, which you can all do in the tool.
And there's in terms of like MSPs getting their clients certified for different frameworks, it somewhat depends on the framework, but I think there's really three kind of like chargeable items that the MSP can charge the client, right? There's almost four. There's kind of like the initial assessment almost. There's the project of actually getting them certified, getting that initial certification in the framework. Then there's the maintenance of it, right? Because you have to then maintain that. And then for most frameworks, you're getting audited once a year. So then there's work to do there, right? So it's not just like one project, you get your check and you're done. But this can be like a continuous revenue stream by keeping a client certified in these frameworks.
Yes. Right. So any other questions on ControlMap itself? I don't want to kind of deep dive in the tool, but any other area or any other interest, I'll be happy to go through that. But overall, from a value perspective, it brings all of it together in a very automated, very integrated way. We do integrate with around 35, 40 systems. We do support all the leading frameworks, and we are continuously adding more. So we add very niche frameworks such as motion picture association ones, and we have the most common ones like CMMC and CIS all loaded in. Right. So,
Pallav, any there might not be, but like any trends or anything you see changing in the compliance environment? Like, is there a brand new one that we're gonna have to watch out for soon, or are the requirements changing for any of these?
It really is dependent on the industry and kind of the area that a company is working in. But for all the government contractors, we see CMMC has become very active. Although there is a little bit of there are a few open items around the CMMC implementation, especially the CMMC 2. There's still things being finalized, but there's a lot of activity around CMMC 2 implementation. A lot of our partners are choosing to implement 800.171 as a framework because CMMC is based on that. So that's definitely growing. We are seeing a lot of requests come in for state ramp projects, which is like a state version of FedRAMP. And we are starting to get requests for Texas state ramp, and I think
California has their own, I think.
California has their own. So there are a lot of state-specific ramps or frameworks coming up. But from an overall trend perspective, I think we have I would say clear winners in different categories. So SOC 2 is a clear winner in the SaaS software category. ISO is a clear winner in like a global standard. If you're working in Europe and US and different places, ISO is a winner. For again, Department of Defense at CMMC. CIS is like a very good, if you really don't know where to start, CIS is a good starting framework. So those are the most common ones, and then we get into niche ones like PCI and HIPAA and FTC and whatnot. Essentially, is fairly big in some parts of the world.
And you mentioned CMMC is kind of getting more active, maybe making some changes. If someone gets word that like they are making changes, should they pause going through that certification, or does that change the trajectory at all?
Not much. I think from a core implementation, it does remain the same. I think the process around it or some of the factors and how it is structured might change, or how you report or go about reporting your assessment score and other things might change a little bit.
And they won't lose their certification if it changes once they get it.
Yeah, I don't know if the certifications are starting to happen yet. But the work, it's all saved. It doesn't, you don't have to throw away any of your work that has been
done. Yeah. So don't really have to worry about it. It's not really a concern when you're going through it if you hear that they might change a little bit.
Yeah, I think there is some work being done on the level 3, but I understand that that's for contractors who are directly working with the government, and it's a handful of them, not everyone.
Okay.
But especially CMMC also has levels, so especially level 1 and level 2, not much change expected.
Okay, perfect. We've got 10 minutes left.
Yeah, anyone in the group doing a CMMC implementation right now? I don't know, like a CMMC or a NIST 800.171 implementation. Right.
Perfect. And with the last 10 minutes, I think we'll open it up for Q&A. So any topics that people have, any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, bring yourself off mute. If also outside of this, if there's something you'd like to see for next week's session, if there's specific themes you'd like to see specific to LCI, deep dive on areas, If we want to see, Mark sing a song and tell us about features in LCI, let us know what you'd like to see for next week, or ask questions about compliance.
Why do you got to challenge me like that, Adam?
You know what, I didn't have to scroll down. I just saw you on the first list, so I called your name.
Well, I do want to share something about things that just dropped with Lifecycle Insights, and it was a shadow drop for everybody. And I'm just going to steal the share screen real quick, Palav, if you don't mind.
No worries.
All right. So couple of things. First things first, you now have under MSP reports, you can now see data from linked PSA data. So you can actually see the PSA tickets that you have linked within our system, and PSA opportunities. At this moment in time, the PSA opportunities is only live for ConnectWise Manage. We are working as feature parity for all the other PSAs. And then the second drop that we have it's brand new is in our integrations page. We now have Infima as the security awareness training. So that's something brand new. It's live. It is available for everybody who's using Infima that for their security awareness training, and you can report on it. So those are the two things that dropped. And it's live, and I hope you guys use it, and hope, as far as the feature requests are concerned, we're still growing. We're still creating a whole bunch of other things. So be on the watch, be on the lookout. So cool. That was it for me. No singing and dancing today.
No, that's next week apparently.
Hey, whoa.
I think we've committed to it at this point. Yeah. Perfect. Any other questions or comments? Did you guys find this useful? Is compliance something that's top of mind, or just at least interesting to know about as it comes up in the future?
I came in late. Today's my billing day, and I got buried in it.
Ooh.
Forgot all about this. What did you guys go over today?
So we covered kind of like how to get one of your clients compliant for different or certified for different frameworks. The process of how it's done, a little bit of the pitfalls. We've got a product called ControlMap, which makes it easier, kind of walks you through all the different steps you need. And I think one other takeaway too, that if you've got a client that's looking at certifications, CIS is kind of like one of the stepping stones. Doesn't waste any time. You'll use all that for like the next certification. So you can kind of start smaller and move up to the heavyweight ones.
All right, I'll have to watch the recording.
Perfect. Yeah, we recorded this one. Thanks, Mark, for reminding me to do that. And if there are no more questions, I think we'll end it there. I think everybody from, even if you're a Canadian or American on this call, I think it's a long weekend. So enjoy that as much as you can, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You guys have a great long weekend.